Welcome back, everybody. If you haven't suppressed the memories like I have, you might recall that last week we reviewed the Full Moon Pictures classic, The Gingerdead Man. And if you paid close attention, you might remember the fact that I said this week we'd be covering its sequel, Gingerdead Man 2, The Passion of the Crust. Well, I am a man of my word. Despite the fact you might have thought I was lying, today we'll be covering what happens when a studio as silly as Full Moon Pictures tries to make fun of itself while also trying to make a coherent movie. Spoiler alert, it's much worse than you'd think. Fasten your seatbelts, kiddos. They won't help, but they're nice to have. For nothing can prepare you for what happens in Gingerdead Man 2, The Passion of the Crust.
Weirdflix.
This movie, well, it's weird as Don't get me wrong, I loved this movie, but it's just so bizarre. It's kind of a parody of Full Moon Pictures itself, which will become evident through this review. But there's also stuff in here that shocked even me.
And you've seen what I watch for this channel.
You're in for a real treat today, folks. The Gingerdead Man was a cakewalk compared to this sequel. Get ready to get out of the frying pan and into the fire that is Gingerdead Man 2, The Passion of the Crust. Our film starts off with a pleasant rhyming narration that catches us up on what happened in the previous film. Oh, come on, why did I even bother with that review if they were just gonna cover it so much better than I could?
In all seriousness, I actually enjoy this introduction. It really sets the tone for what you're about to see.
Plus, how many movies open with a rhyming storybook narration? Big points for originality. At the end of this narration, the movie amps up into one of my new favorite title sequences, as it plays, I kid you not, a song that's basically the Gingerdead Man's theme song. It's called Run Run Run, I believe, and it's awesome.
Run, run as fast as you can.
While this is happening, fake movie posters appear on the screen for films that, if they were real, I would probably own. Look at some of these. Escape from Sloth Island? Sign me up. After these amazing credits, we open on...
Human sacrifice?
If it wasn't for the opening narration, I'd assume I put in the wrong movie. The gist of this is that Baldy here needs a sacrifice to awaken the Tiny Terrors, sentient puppets who are evil. They've got such classics as a pirate named Treasure Chest, a zombie, a garden gnome, the ugliest thing I've ever seen, a sentient teapot, and one that we can't show you. I'll let you guess what it is. Anyway, the Tiny Terrors, who honestly, look at them, they're horrifying, start to malfunction, and it's revealed that this is a movie set. Everyone begins to argue as it's revealed that production on this film, Tiny Terrors 9 Purgatory of the Petite, is not going as planned. All eyes turn to the producer and owner of the studios, Kelvin Cheatham. Who names their kid Kelvin? He's the son of the former owner, Robert Cheatham, who created Cheatham Studios. I wonder if he was partners with Dewey and Howe.
For any fan who recognized my Three Stooges reference, congratulations! You have an 80-year-old sense of humor.
Anyway, Kelvin here has called in as many favors as he can in an attempt to make some movies that will get his failing studio back on track. Yeah, based on these puppets, I don't think that's gonna work. People seem a little tense after this last shoot. The cult leader is covered in gunk, that other one looks really stupid with his makeup on, a girl is crying, things aren't great. To make matters worse, it looks like Elle Woods from Legally Blonde has made an appearance. She's craft services and has brought a box of cookies to the shoot from her sister in Texas. She opens the box after a few innuendos, and look, it's the star of the show. He's looking different. Stiffer, I'd say.
So here's an important detail about this movie. Other than the line I mentioned 2 sentences ago, and the introduction at the beginning, there's basically no connection to the first movie. None of the characters return, and it takes place in an entirely different state. For all intents and purposes, this might as well be the first movie. I almost wish it was. This one is a lot more fun. Well, I like it at least. Probably says a lot about me. As I mentioned before, this is also supposed to be a parody of the company that made this movie, Full Moon Pictures. So going forward, you can if you want to, but I'm going to pretend that this is a day in the life of Full Moon Studios.
Anyway, we see that Kelvin is a terrible leader, as he lets slip that he's only paying his director and absolutely no other member of his cast and crew. I can relate. This leads to a no-holds-barred brawl between everyone. It's pretty great. Take a look.
Great work, everybody! I'm gonna be in my office ordering pizza for everyone. I know you're all hungry for a little something.
As someone who's worked in a studio like this before, I entirely understand.
Okay, Chris, come on. I know TVWB got intense sometimes, but it was never this bad. Don't be so dramatic.
Oh, come on, Alex. The only things you did in that class were measure people's heights on the whiteboard and try to find yourself a prom date that ended with you eliminating all your potential options. You didn't do any real work in that class.
Okay, Chris, so who filmed all of the commercials for you in that class? Me. And who did you never let edit any of those commercials in that class? Me. So, me not doing any work was not for lack of trying.
You know, looking back on it, I probably should have let you do the editing. You are much better at it than I am, and you do it for free.
Thank you, Chris. It's about time someone finally realized my true potential.
This senseless yet funny act of violence wakes up the Gingerdead Man, who has mostly been muttering under his breath at this point. He was saying mean things, you didn't want to hear them, trust me. He pops up and he looks like the shark from Jaws. You know, black eyes, like a doll's eyes. It's unsettling, but not in a scary way.
When they get a taste of me.
You may have also noticed that the Gingerdead Man sounds different. Well, that's because they presumably could not afford Gary Busey anymore, so now he's just voiced by some guy. Anyway, the important part of this scene is that Kelvin's assistant gets a bloody nose and runs off. This takes us to the next scene of a kid in a wheelchair and his aide. The kid's name is Tommy, and he's a member of the End of the Rainbow Foundation. His greatest wish is to tour the Cheatham Studios,
Which I can fully support. You do you, kid.
They almost run into Kelvin, who's currently lying to his assistant about how her nose looks. Now, I've never broken a bone, and I drink a lot of milk, so hopefully I never will, but I'm pretty sure that's going to require more than an ice pack. Kelvin meets up with Tommy and his aide named Heather. Kelvin agrees to show them around, mostly to avoid running his studio. Another assistant of his comes up to tell him that 1, they're bankrupt, and 2, their movies are getting terrible reviews online. Some guy named Demon Warrior 13 is giving all their films, including the one they're currently making, terrible reviews.
Frankly, I'm offended by this entirely unrealistic character. Who makes fun of a movie online? You'd have to be a real loser with no social life at all if you think that reviewing movies is a good way to spend your time.
Also at this point, we get a reference to another Full Moon Picture staple, a man by the name of David Dakota.
Or should I say, Mary Crawford. Or perhaps Richard Chasen. He has a surprising amount of aliases if you check his IMDb. He makes, well, calling them movies would be generous. They're mostly excuses for shirtless men to do various activities, while the barest threads of a story connect these activities. He also makes kid movies for some reason. I happen to have a few here with me. We're talking about such films as Speed Demon, A Talking Cat, 1313 Giant Killer Bees, and my personal favorite, My Stepbrother is a Vampire.
He's shown here making a sci-fi movie, and we get to see the care he puts into directing.
Was it good? Did I like it? Was it in focus?
Far as I could tell.
Kid, you were brilliant.
Back on the main lot, we see the craft service lady, who's named Polly, is flirting with one of the extras. Her entire character is that she makes innuendos, and they don't even make sense half the time. This gives the Gingerdead Man the chance to slip away, and we get a scene of him running through the crowd.
How nobody manages to see this foot-tall cookie running around utterly baffles me, but whatever.
We see that he's looking for a way to get into a real body that isn't a cookie, but he has no idea how to do it, until he hears 2 prop guys discussing where to put a book of spells. The Gingerdead Man goes to investigate, and after reading a few entries,
Transmigration, soul to body transference spell.
he manages to find a helpful one.
Now, I find it incredibly odd that he thinks this spell would work. I mean, he's reading from a prop book, right? They weren't using a real satanic spell book? Sure, probably not.
We check back in with Kelvin, who's doing just a bang-up job giving the tour. Look at how he treats his employees.
There's no toilet paper in there again.
Kelvin is alerted to the fact that the star of his film, Sir Ian Kavanagh, a Sir Ian McKellen knockoff, no longer wants to be in it. So Kelvin tries to sweet-talk him, and I think it's working.
Not bloody likely, mate.
Or not. Well, while Kelvin dries off, let's check back in with our baked bad guy. I'll take a moment to summarize what his plan is. To get into a body, he needs to kill 5 people, and the last one has to be a virgin. At least, if I'm understanding the Book of Spells correctly. And it looks like he's found his first victim.
I don't know why they killed this guy off screen, but hey, whatever works.
In the meantime, we check back in with Kelvin and his tour group. They're touring David Dakota's set, and there's a nice joke about him.
Wow, that's David Dakota! His films are known for their thrills, high-concept gothic horror, and subtle homoeroticism.
How's this for the lunar space spacewalk.
Love it.
Oh, Richard Chasen. I get it now.
Kelvin finds out that they managed to find some extra cash by renting out his office to a rival film company.
Please read into the subtext of what I'm trying to say here. Wink, wink.
We also see that a robot prop is malfunctioning. I wonder why they bothered mentioning this. Anyway, let's get back to the star. He's observing Polly and the makeup guy, whose name I don't know, but, well, he's quite a character.
Mama and I used to make cookies together when she wasn't drunk, face down on the kitchen floor. But don't you just love raw cookie dough?
She's serving gross-looking soup, and they're both ogling that extra with the stupid-looking face makeup. However, he gets called away. The Gingerdead Man takes this opportunity to set up what I guess you could call a trap. He basically spills something. The makeup artist goes to clean it up, and we get a death scene that's one of the, let's see. It's either the worst, the best, the most creative, or the most offensive I've ever seen. Take your pick.
I don't know if we can actually show this, so I'm just gonna leave a disclaimer. If there's any kids watching this, why? Also, look away.
Well, that was certainly something. Moving on. Kelvin and his tour group meet Polly, who Tommy recognizes as a former Scream queen. For the uninformed, that's a woman who stars in a horror film and screams a lot. Anyway, Tommy gets some merchandise signed, and there's a scene where Kelvin explains why he loves making movies and wants them to succeed.
Making movies is all I know. As far back as I can remember, I used to watch my father run this studio. Every day he came to work, he had a big smile on his face because he loved what he did so much. I always knew that when I grew up, this is what I wanted to do. Here I am.
Aw, that's kind of sweet.
Heather seems to have enjoyed it. She enjoyed it quite a bit, I'm guessing, given how they're now playing tonsil hockey. I'm pretty sure that this is rampant unprofessionalism on Heather's part. There's a terminally ill kid like 10 feet from them. You're supposed to be taking care of him. What are you doing? Come to think of it, is he even a kid? He looks pretty old. Polly sees face makeup extra on his way to the bathroom and sneaks after him. She corners him in the stall and apparently listens to him evacuate his bowels.
Boy's getting enough roughage in his diet.
Polly, I'm sorry about that.
Okay, that was weird. What happens next, unfortunately, we can't show you. All I'll say is that Polly seduces, is probably the right word, the makeup guy in the bathroom, and the Gingerdead Man watches them. Well, he does more than watch, but you didn't hear that from me. He even goes so far as to kill them mid-deed, which, come on, man, that's just rude.
Back with Tommy, Kelvin, and Heather, who have finished by now, giving Tommy enough time to take a nap. Kelvin hears that Sir Ian is still in his trailer, unwilling to act, so he tries to sweet-talk him again. You know what? I think it might work this time.
You know, I've idolized you since I was a little kid. All my friends are fans. Heck, let's face it, even my father idolized you when he was a kid.
I am not good at making predictions. In the puppet repair shop, we see a technician? What do you call a puppet repairman? Well, he's working on a puppet that I call the ugliest thing I've ever seen. It still holds true.
It makes me physically ill to look at it.
Well, apparently it gets the Gingerdead Man all hot and bothered, which makes me think those black eyes mean he's blind. He attempts to flirt with it and a little puppet hanky-panky as well. Unfortunately, there's a puppeteer's hand in it, poor guy, which doesn't end well for him when the Gingerdead Man cuts his hand off.
Ouch.
Luckily, Kelvin and Heather happen to find this poor guy before he bleeds out because they're looking for Tommy, who went missing. No wonder. This causes a panic in the studio, getting the rest of those pesky extras out of here before the final act. Kelvin and Heather look around, winding back up in the space set from earlier, where they find a poor extra who's gonna have a hard time buying glasses from now on. You know, on account of the missing eye. Also, that's a really gross effect. Good job to whoever did that. However, he is shortly disintegrated by the Gingerdead Man, who somehow turned a robot prop into a functioning mech suit?
What? Whoa, 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 slow down. This robot's real? What, are you trying to kill your actors?
It looks like it's curtains for Kelvin and Heather until someone takes an axe to the Gingerdead Man. My god, it's him. It's Demon Warrior 13. But wait a second, it's Tommy?
Here's Tommy!
That means that Demon Warrior 13 was Tommy the entire time. That's really messed up. I mean, he pretended to be a Make-A-Wish kid to get here. Not a fan of the plan, Tommy. It turns out that Tommy's alter ego, Demon Warrior 13, hates Cheatham Studios because he sent them several scripts which they returned unopened. So now, as he reveals by opening his backpack, he's gonna blow them up.
Whoa, come on, what is wrong with this guy? Tommy, you used to be cool.
Finally, something in this movie that I actually want to watch. I'm gonna pretend like this is another episode of Criminal Minds and patiently wait for Dr. Spencer Reed to make his entrance and steal my breath away.
This is a routine thing on Criminal Minds, where somebody tries to blow up a movie studio because they wouldn't read his scripts and a gingerbread man goes around killing people. This is a Criminal Minds episode.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking about the profile. So if Tommy was actually a bomber, he would not be that confrontational. Normally bombers, when caught, they run with their tail between their legs and they surrender. So whoever wrote that part of Tommy's character did not profile correctly. However, he has a bunch of sociopathic traits found common in a lot of serial killers, like lack of empathy, lack of conscience, and my favorite, being self-centered. Notice how Tommy plays that role of the terminally ill character just to shed it when he no longer needs it? Yeah, that's common in serial killers and sociopaths. What they do is they play this role until they no longer need it or they're no longer the center of attention. Then they will just shed it. I love how they developed this in Tommy.
Okay then, Sherlock. While I appreciate your deductions, I really doubt anyone on this movie was paid enough to try to create a profile for their villain. This is supposed to be a comedy, remember? At least I think it is.
Kelvin thinks quickly and manages to keep Tommy talking by offering him a 3-picture deal in a scene that frankly is pretty funny.
You know what? On Monday, we're gonna create a whole new slate just for you. I can't believe I'm hearing this.
I mean, all this time, all I've ever wanted to do was be in the business. I mean, you do know I live with my mother, right? And I operate out of her basement.
No, I didn't know that.
This gives Heather enough time to find something to bash him over the head with.
Cheatham Studios' biggest hit!
You're telling me that they have a real robot that fires lasers, but the sets are styrofoam?
That's pretty realistic.
Tommy ties up the two and prepares to sacrifice them on their own movie set.
Ironic. He's trying to use a spell from that book earlier for even more edgy irony points.
He finds one, but
Before the ceremony can begin, the executioner must first carve the unholy star or pentagram in the palm of his own hand. Okay, you know what? Let's forget that part too.
I respect someone who understands their own limitations. He finds one he likes, begins the incantation until he's literally stabbed in the back by the Gingerdead Man. He's the virgin that the Gingerdead Man required.
Which I take offense to. Just because he reviewed movies online and lived in his mother's basement doesn't mean he's a loser that you can sacrifice. At least for my sake, I hope not.
The Gingerdead Man still needs another victim though, since he can't be too sure the guy whose hand he cut off is dead. I admire his thoroughness. However, Tommy's blood seems to be doing something. It seems to be awakening the tiny tears. Oh God, no, please, I don't want to have to look at these things again.
Hey, wait a second. This movie's called Passion of the Crust, like Passion of the Christ, but I haven't seen anything to merit that name yet. I don't understand. Is it just supposed to be a reference? Because there's nothing in the movie to indicate that. I swear, false advertising. I am going to write them a strongly worded...
No, don't! Oh, that hurts a lot! No! Not my tootsies! Not my yummy little tootsies! Ow! 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 God, that hurts a lot!
Well, I have no words about this. I didn't see this coming. Guess it wasn't false advertising.
Thankfully, we don't have to see them again. Sir Ian shows up and guns them down. Thankfully, since Sir Ian shows up and guns down the Tiny Terrors, we'll never have to see them again. It's glorious. Anything so that we never have to look upon these horrific beings ever again. Our film ends with Sir Ian screaming, Kelvin and Heather kissing, and Tiny Terrors winning some kind of film award. Oh, and some hobo eats the burned, crucified body of the Gingerdead Man.
Well, that certainly was Gingerdead Man 2, Passion of the Crust.
First of all, I want to start out by saying that I did not have a lot of thoughts about this movie. This is not a movie that you have a lot of thoughts about. That being said, something about the camera work reminds me of an episode of The Office. Now, if you notice in the first movie and in the second movie, filming is completely different, and I hate that. I felt like they should have kept it consistent, especially with a series. In the sequel, you're changing the location, you're changing the whole entire cast, and you couldn't even get the original actor who played the Gingerdead Man in the sequel. For all we know, this could stand alone as a movie. If you're gonna make a series like this, keep at least one thing consistent. And please, for the love of God, keep the filming consistent. Also, I want to make a quick comment about the Gingerdead Man in this movie. He was severely homophobic. He made comments about the makeup artist and called him a fruitcake and a cream puff. And I hated that with a burning passion. I do not care that it was 2008 when this movie was made. That does not fly. That is not okay. And Christopher, how many more of these movies do we have to cover? Because I will literally scream. I will literally scream.
I love this movie. It's probably one of my favorites that we've done so far. Now, admittedly, if you're not a fan of Full Moon Pictures, you might miss out on some of the references and not enjoy all of it, but there is so much here for everyone to enjoy. Well, maybe not enjoy, but stared slackjaw at, wondering how they could put that in a movie. It's fun for the whole family. Side note, do not watch this with your family. If you're curious about everything this movie has to offer, you're in luck. It's available on the Tubi streaming service, and I recommend you watch it as soon as possible. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Weirdflix. Be sure to tune in next week when we'll be having a special Valentine's Day episode. But after that, it's right back to Gingerdead Man 3, Saturday Night Cleaver. Again, not kidding. Thank you very much for watching, and remember, Weirdflix watches what no one else will.
Run, run!